Serious, what are some men's issues that are overlooked? I'm a single father with primary custody of a school-aged child with little social support in my area. I was also the stay-at-home parent while I went back to college and completed my degree. It is damn near impossible to find good childcare. My female work friends volunteer, but then bail at the last minute. I'm looked at as a threat by husbands of my son's classmate parents. I find that I'm often the only guy at the playground and get sideways glances from the cliques of women who go there. If I hire a babysitter, I have to make sure I'm overly cautious about respecting boundaries if I'm even able to have a babysitter watch my child. Also, the normal competition among female mothers gets amplified, and I'm often looked down on as a parent. I don't fit in with working guys who just want to go out and get a beer because I have a child to take care of, and women often reject me on online dating sites simply because I have a child. I love my son and would do anything in the world for him. I feel like I've done a lot, but men in my situation have zero to little support or infrastructure to manage as a single, full-time parent in society. Men can be just as good parents as women, and society needs to normalize this pronto. Thank you for talking about this. I'm in my late 20s and my father was a single father. He is my hero and absolutely an amazing parent and person. I'm sure your son will look at you the same. This is a huge issue. The only reason he even won in court was because my mother said she wasn't able and ready to raise a child to the judge's face. My grandmother, mom's mom, has always told me that was the greatest thing my mom would ever do for me, because my dad was by far and away more fit to be a parent. But until that, the court was just going to default to mother custody. Thank you for bringing this up. And thank you for being a father. Thank your lucky stars you had a mother who had the foresight to walk away. I've raised my little brother when my mother threw up her hands and dropped him off a few days after Christmas like he was a lost puppy. Never received a single cent from her for the trouble. She refused to do anything to grant me custody. We never pressed the issue, but we documented with the state where the child was. I could petition the court, but the less stress the better. I wasn't so lucky in my upbringing, but I'm quite happy knowing that will never happen to my own children. Loneliness. Many men tend to have a lot of friends, but never close friends or people they feel like truly care about them, which leads to declining mental health, and maybe worse. I saw a woman attempting to hit her boyfriend outside a local supermarket. He walked away from her. She followed him and kept hitting him. After this went on for about 90 seconds, he shoved her away roughly once. The cars immediately stopped, and men jumped out of them shouting at and threatening this guy for shoving her. Nobody did anything when she was attacking him. So this one might not be as serious as the others. I babysit my friends' kids all the time. One is 3 and the other is 11. I like to take them out and about to have some fun. We go eat food. We go to the park and arcades too. We have a ton of fun. But I always get weird looks from people. They don't look like me at all because I'm not the father. I've had people interrogate me and it's weird to me. I've been there their entire life and treat them like my own kids. So it kinda hurts. There are almost always more shelters available to women experiencing homelessness. In my city, the split is about 75% beds for women and children and 25% for men. I understand that society considers women more vulnerable, but I live in a city where it routinely gets below zero in the winter. Hypothermia doesn't care about your gender. When I lived in support accommodation, they only allowed a certain number of men per house, for example only 3 in a 6-bedroom house because too many men together are apparently violent. For a while I lived with 5 other women because there weren't any rules about how many women could live together. There were daily arguments and screaming matches, many of which would lead to actual fist fights, and it went on for a lot longer than it should have because we are women and it's not that bad. Homeless support for men is horribly bad. The lack of a good support system. Just because a guy has people that he hangs out with doesn't mean he's comfortable telling them serious personal issues. I don't the accuracy of the statement, but I read that majority of men between ages 14-35 are lonely. I can speak for myself and that's true. It had been more than a year I had any human interaction outside my family. Even though your family has your back, but you don't tell them all the things you are going through, just because you don't want to bother them with your problems, because you feel your problems don't matter, and you should be able to face it on your own. Yep. Saying hi to the store clerk or a neighbor for a minute isn't the same as plopping down on the couch at night and having a 2-hour chat about whatever. For me it's basically been, wait, what century are we in again? Anyways, being able to talk about the neat dog you saw or a great tasting burger sounds like petty nonsense, but the act of sharing is the big takeaway, and the worst part is people saying go to a therapist. Well, I can't afford it. I feel it would mark me as crazy or unbalanced, and any counseling service just feels ungenuine. Is that a word? It is now. Everyone I know drifted as is normal in life, and I'm not going to bother my parents with my issues. Dad. There seems to be an over-reliance on the go to a therapist thought, which to me is like responding go get a hooker if someone says they want a girlfriend. Can a therapist help? Yes, but they aren't the solution people claim it is. Ironically, I've been lucky because where I live is transplants that don't give a duck about COVID, and I don't live anywhere near any of my family. Now, it's some ducked up balance when I'm balancing the risk of COVID against being just all alone. It's fascinating to read a lot of people who constantly preached on their ivory tower about how people should just stay home, without recognizing that maybe it's more nuanced than that. The people I went out with were all clear to friends' family what they were doing, and were responsibly irresponsible in order to stave off a year of painful loneliness. So I'm at the park playing tag with these kids I'm babysitting, and out of nowhere this old lady comes up to me and starts asking all sorts of questions. Do you know these kids? What are their names? Can you call their parents for me? Even asking the kids if they knew me, and when they answered yes, she responded with, you don't have to lie. If you don't know this man, you can tell me and I can help you. I was wondering if this comment would come up. In teaching, male teachers have to be so much more careful. They should try to avoid even unintentionally brushing against a child. They have to worry a lot more about frivolous accusations from students, because unfortunately society seems to prejudge men as predatory and untrustworthy around children. Male pattern baldness and the impact it can have on mental health and body image. Imagine being in college surrounded by guys with perfect NW1 hairlines with all these cool fades and modern trendy hairstyles, while you're stuck looking like Mobby or Varys from GOT. Brutal. One of the issues is that the balding experience is very subjective. A lot of people will tell you to shave your head and it'll look great. Normally that's because it looks great on them. Talk of bald men looking distinguished, or references to Jason Statham and The Rock etc. really don't help either. Male disposability. If something is dangerous, send men. Your partner can replace you easily. Your only value is what you offer to other people, and the minute you are not useful anymore people cast you aside like the fungible commodity you are. I would like to be treated like I have inherent value as a person, not like I'm something to be tolerated until I'm no longer useful. In Western culture, men are defined by what they do and not by who they are being. So, when they retire they often develop mental illness because they are no longer doing. This often leads to suicide. Then there's the whole nonsense of the stoic emotionless man getting on with the work. The consequences of body shaming. It has the same effect on men as it does women. No one likes to be insulted, no matter who you are. Just because we are a different sex does not mean our minds are so vastly different that we react differently to even the most basic of things. Some women think we are emotionless, meant to serve them. Sorry if I had worded this wrong. Lack of purpose and direction in life. Not necessarily a male only deal, but still, I see it everywhere and it should be discussed. I see so many threads on forums and boards where people are looking for basic ducking life advice. Where to go, what to do with their life, how to be happy like everybody else, acting as though something is inherently wrong with them because our culture expects it. But I say, you know what? These are completely normal, rational, and expected reactions given the circumstances. Parents in the Gen X generation did so poorly, on the whole, in preparing kids for their adult lives. I'm not much better myself. I see young people and they seem abjectly hopeless. And why the duck would they not be? You can go online and hear, not just from sociologists and experts, but also regular people like you and I, randoms on the internet, talking how going to college, once seen as a golden gate, a panacea to future happiness, success, and stability, is no longer guaranteed. Rather, it has been entirely corrupted into a sort of unspoken requirement to make the bare minimum to even live comfortably in the United States. And for what? To work in a white-collar job which is increasingly being bullshitized and generally unfulfilling and unstimulating. Read David Graeber's bullshit jobs. It's enlightening so one can pay a mortgage or rent and medical car expenses. And sure, you could go into trades, but that requires just as much commitment to another job and its associated apprenticeship, but often in physically demanding and hazardous circumstances that take a great toll later in life on top of the existing stresses of having a job. On top of that, we are so overworked that just taking the time to meet people, make friends, keep hobbies, take in experiences, is impossible. And between all of this, the world is descending into political insanity and the environment is getting worse. Those reading this of the younger stripe can easily recall multiple instances of their parents badgering and pestering them to just go out and just go get more friends, as if they were choosing to be this way. But when? How? Where? Have you been on Meetup? Do you know how much of a chore it is to go on Nextdoor or drive to a library to look at a bulletin board to try and find like-minded individuals to do anything, and then they have to rely on the others to commit to showing up, who might not because, you know, the reasons above. And not only that, there's the looming thought of the future and its generally awful outlook. Young people are rightly concerned about the world in the future, but older people don't care, often joking how it's our problem, we'll figure it out. Young folks want to make sure we stop burning coal and they want to end homelessness and make sure everyone can go to the doctor without fearing crippling debt. But they are tired and so busy keeping their shit together that they either can't make change for fear of losing everything who wants to risk their job by getting arrested at a protest, or if they actually do manage to get out of the crab bucket, they just end up exacerbating the problem, saying duck you, I got mine, because you know, they worked hard, so pull yourself up by your bootstraps like me you lazy bastard. Even though those strips of leather are getting older, thinner, and weaker every year, I don't want to be a doomer or a late stage capitalist, collapsology kind of guy, but I'm seeing these sentiments and opinions communicated online to others much more than in the past, both on Reddit and other forums of discussion, and it reflects an alarming trend for young men, and without a doubt, young people in general. The older generations will, for the first time in history, probably have lived better lives than their successors will. I can absolutely see a sort of hikikomori class coming up. The world calls them needs, but I can see them becoming more common as more young people say why bother, I don't want to work in an office like a slave my entire life, and they just stop caring. And it's not because they want to play video games and be lazy, although I imagine escapism, fantasy, and wanderlust is certainly something that is chased, but because the expected life paths that the average Gen Z and millennial faces lead to zero fulfillment, if you can even manage to achieve them, and it is harder and harder every year to just get basics like housing, medical, education, etc., regardless of where you go. Penis shaming, along with fat shaming and height shaming, it's some of the most casual cruelty I hear frequently, even if it's joking about little dick energy, even if it's not meant to be malicious. As someone with not quite a micro-penis, but might as well be, it's devastating every time. Just one more way I feel inadequate, one more way I'm not a real man. It hurts even more when other men do it. Men are frequently treated as expendable. Even in countries with mingled militaries, men are the overwhelming majority of combat troops and thus casualties. Not to mention pretty much all child soldiers are male. If you are male between the ages of 14, 60, and happen to be anywhere near a combat zone, even if it's your own backyard, you are considered a military age male and a possible target. News media regularly says things like 100 killed including 14 women and children, as if the other 86 men don't matter as much. Something like 90% of all workplace injuries and fatalities are male. Whether men seek out more dangerous jobs or only men are selected for those jobs is debatable. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing for more videos.